So to start, if we can just turn our gaze inward, or lower our eyes, or close our eyes, lower our gaze, whichever way is comfortable for you, to um, sort of relax into being, relax into presence, and to welcome your experience as it appears to you, whichever form it takes, whatever thoughts arise or sensations. No need to engage, no need to fix anything or uh, try to figure anything out. It's okay to simply sink into being or rest as being. And notice the peace, the stillness, the inner tranquility of our true nature, which effortlessly welcomes everything as it appears. It welcomes it as itself. Above all, you welcome yourself in your recognition of the peace, the recognition of the love, of the stillness, of the causeless happiness of our true nature. It is the love within you that recognizes itself, the peace within you that recognizes the peace. And in this peace, and as this peace, there is no past, no stories, no issues. The past is absolutely gone. The future is absolutely not present. That which remains, this absolute presence, awareness, beingness, is common to all of us, is common to all minds. Everything we perceive, whatever sensations and images, we perceive via awareness, via consciousness, as a form of awareness, a form of consciousness, as if consciousness is appearing as this hearing right now, without being disturbed in any way. As this presence, there is nothing to do. Whatever needs doing is somehow being done. The realm of doing, in the realm of activity, rainfall, sun shining, blooming flowers, ripening fruit. In your experience, moment by moment, it's the experience of being, of I. It's a sort of a wordless experience. It's not an experience of thought. It's an experience of being, of presence. The amness. It is this amness which notices itself not as an object, but as a reality, the reality of being. You are not that which appears. You are that which perceives, that which understands, and that which perceives and understands is not something that you perceive. It's not an object of perception or an object of conception. or an object of sensation. It's a transparent reality of being that has no location in the world or in the mind. Rather, the world, the mind, meaning perceptions and thoughts, are its manifestation, not its cause. Everything that you experience refers to the reality of consciousness, that which perceives and comprehends. The body mind is an instrument of perception, of comprehension, of sensation. But the instrument is not that which perceives. The instrument is not that which understands. That which perceives and understands is I. I is this understanding. I is the reality of perception. Not I, a man or a woman, a daughter, a mother, a father. Not the manifest form, the I, the unmanifest, formless, transparent presence. When you confuse yourself, meaning when you confuse I consciousness to be a female, a male, or some form, somebody, some mind, you are mistaken. You have been mistaken. And this mistaking accompanies once the mistake is on board, your perception, your understanding become mistaken as well. You, meaning consciousness, presence, awareness, you are not born. One could say body-mind is born. You do not occur in time and space. You are not an event in time and space. One could say the body-mind is an event in time and space. In your experience, this very moment, time appears to you as an image of yesterday's dinner. But this image that appears to you, that refers to yesterday, is an illusion. Because yesterday is the thought, sensation, arising in the vastness of presence in this moment, which is a moment of eternity, the eternity of consciousness. When you confuse your understanding of time arising within presence, within consciousness, you imagine and you feel that consciousness is arising within thought, within time. And you experience yourself as a result, as an event in time. How could you be an event in time if you perceive events, you perceive time? Within you is the capacity to comprehend, to understand, understanding about God, about truth. It heals you from mistaken beliefs and the mistaken understanding. Once we believed the earth was the center of the universe. We would have gone on believing that that the earth is the center of the universe for eons, had it not been for the understanding. understanding that the sun is the center of our planetary system. And it is one system among a billion other systems within this galaxy. Understanding about our true nature heals ignorance and liberates you from the impression of separation, the unhappy realm of the bubblehood of me. Me and others, me and the world, the separate me, the inside mind and the external world. The contemplation of what is the true significance of I, what is the reality of I. Is essential. Rather than following the thoughts that appear to you, follow your contemplation. Thoughts may take you outwards, except if they're referring you to God, to truth. Contemplation has to go inward. What is it that is real in my experience, this moment and every moment? You continue to forge at it until you come to the clarity that the reality of your experience is not historic. That the reality of your experience is transparent, borderless, universal, impersonal, aware presence. You are that, thou art that, and all is that. Everything that you experience as that, is that. Awareness, presence, taking on the form of this conversation, taking on the form of a sensation, taking on the form of an image, without ever leaving itself, without ever becoming anything. Don't worry about anything else. Let everything else be. Whatever knocks on your door, respond to it, but not out of ignorance, not as a separate self. Respond to it as consciousness. Okay, so for the rest of the meeting, if you could unmute your mic if you have anything that you would like to share or questions that you have. And you can also, if you like, turn on your video. This way we can see each other. So any questions?
Hi, Magdi.
Hello, Richard.
I don't know if this is too abstract, but I've been thinking about it. Would you be able to speak to maybe the causes? What is the cause of our forgetfulness of who we are? Like, is there an origin that you could speak to, or is it just too different for the reasons we forget? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Well, so there is one reality, yes? One reality. The reality of consciousness, the reality of God, the reality of being. So when you contemplate that there is one reality, you may come to the understanding that whatever else there is this one reality. Meaning, whatever worlds there are, whatever universes there are, whatever minds there are, whatever universes there are. Or this one reality. One could say this one reality universing or worldling or minding or raining and butterflying. So the key thing is to comprehend that there is one reality. And in our experience, it's important that we're not talking theoretically. In our experience, there are perceptions, sensations, thoughts, memories, images. And they're constantly fleeting and changing and dancing. But that which is constant in our experience is awareness, consciousness, presence, whatever words we use to describe that which is beyond description, that there is a reality to our experience, and we call it consciousness, let's say. And so when we say, okay, let's contemplate there is one reality, we're not speaking theoretically. We're actually speaking from our experience, that actually this is validated, let's say, by our experience. We've never experienced anything else but awareness. Yes, you can say taking on the form of this conversation right now, but without awareness, without consciousness, what would be this conversation? And where is this conversation? It's intimate with awareness. It's not like this conversation out there and awareness is traveling, it's going to get there in 2 minutes. So coming back to your question, when we contemplate that there is one reality and that everything is this one reality, that there is nothing else but this reality, the question of causation, in a way, it's on one hand, it is moot, it makes no sense. And on the other hand, it can be answered very simply in that consciousness is causing itself. This is causing whatever it is perceiving, because that which perceives, the reality that perceives, is consciousness. So the reality of that which asked that question that you asked, the I that asked this question, is not Richard. It's true that the wording, the sound bites, came via the Richard instrument with his, the instrument, particular vocal, the fact that English speaking, etc. That particular instrument was an instrument that was a tool for the expression, but not that which expressed, you see. The binoculars are not that which perceives. The telescope is not that which perceives. That which perceives is I, consciousness. So in a way, your question is your question, a question of consciousness posing this question. And to whom? Is it posing to anything outside of itself? Because if in fact consciousness is posing a question outside of itself, then there would be another reality, which would be whatever you want to call it, that consciousness is sending a message to. I have a question, please. And you send me the reply. But that's not the case. In fact, so one could say, and it's sort of amusing at the mind level, it's like, wait, consciousness is asking itself a question about the reason why it is playing this game, because it's free to play. Consciousness, complete freedom. It's complete, and it's play. Yes. Oh, Yes, Carol. Yes.
Hi, I'm Carol.
Yes.
Richard, I appreciated your question because the personal prayer that I say every time I eat includes just gratitude for the nourishment, which allows me to live consciously and open-heartedly. But also I express this, which is my small level of answering that question for myself. Um, it's I'm grateful for this lifetime as one more opportunity to experience the miracles of divine creation and to rediscover the great love which connects all that is. So that's a lot of concrete language, which doesn't probably fit in here,
No, it's
but
good to me.
I'm sorry.
It sounds good to me.
It does. Okay. It doesn't break the rules.
No, consciousness is playing the love, you know.
Right.
It's a play of
So
love and gratitude, and
yeah.
it's a sweet. It's like walking in the rain and singing in the rain, or
Yeah, yeah.
maybe not in the rain. You know, why do we whistle? You know, sometimes we're whistling. You know, yeah.
Right. So for me, the simple answer is joy, for the experience of joy.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
that,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that. That's yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
there is joy in our inquiry too, in our
In
contemplation.
the question, right.
Question,
Right.
there's
It's a
joy.
good question.
Yes, there's an interest.
if there was a rule sheet that was given out, I never got it, Carol. So
That's good. Thank you.
that's a beautiful prayer. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you for
Yes,
receiving it.
yeah, yeah.
And thank you, Magdi.
Yes, yes, Richard. See, the more we come to the comprehension of the wholeness, which is the holiness, the wholeness, the holiness, the totality, the non-dual reality of God, of being, of everything is sort of contained within that understanding.
I mean, I think that my question assumes within itself that there's a problem, right? My question assumes a problem, but maybe there's no problem.
Yeah, I didn't hear, I didn't hear that in your question. I didn't hear the assumption of a problem. Um, what would be the assumption of the problem? What problem would that be?
And maybe that, I mean, maybe what I'm talking about is being sort of, what's the cause
Oh,
of forgetting or not realizing
yes,
what's the case. Maybe
yeah,
that isn't really a problem. Maybe it is just part of the
yes.
what is.
I
Just
understand.
is he
Yeah,
playing? It's not a problem at all.
yeah. Well, at the same time, Richard, we cannot deny unhappiness whenever there is unhappiness. We do recognize unhappiness. Well, I do recognize unhappiness, and in terms of the causes, it never really occurred to me too much but more to comprehend the process of the unhappiness, the mechanism, let's say, the mechanism of the unhappiness, which another way of saying it, the mechanism of a separation from God, separation from
Yes.
love, the separation from our true nature, other way of speaking it. And the mechanism is what we often talk about as ignorance. We use the word ignorance, meaning ignoring, not overlooking the reality of consciousness and believing and feeling much, much stronger than believing, feeling that I am a separate self, sort of God has forgotten me. And if I am lucky and if I do the right prayers and practices, that God will remember me again, you know. But you know, God is a loving God. So there is something false about this notion that I'm a separate self. And we can come to some sense that there is something false about being a separate self. We can sort of get a sense of that, the feeling of that. But it's also important to have the understanding. And the understanding has to rely not on belief, but on your experience. So when we go to our experience, then we find that in our experience, I is not an object that appears. It's not a man or a woman or a person that appears. Yes, there is something that appears. There is an image of Magdi or memories or sensations that appear. But the I is the reality that perceives those perceptions, that perceives those images, that perceives these memories. And so then there is an understanding, oh, wait a minute. Wait, so are there two eyes? Is there I that perceives and the I that is being perceived? Like that's, I don't experience myself as two eyes. I perceive myself as one. And so that starts the wheels turning of the wheels of inquiry, and the inquiry leads to understanding, you see. And I think that, you know, as Carol was saying, it's a journey of love, of joy, of celebration. So the why is, you know, why do we go play in the sandbox and then we say, oh, this is my toy, this is your toy, you know? I guess we like to experience this mine, not yours, you know?
Sure.
But as we are where we are right now, we understand, or we're coming to the understanding that mine, not yours, is not a very sweet way of celebrating God's gift, you know. That's not the way. You know? The way is rather to comprehend that everything is God's creation, and God creates for everybody and creates everybody. So it's all God's dream, and I am God's light. Not I as an ego, not I as this personality, but the I which is shining through this body mind is God's light. There's only one I, one reality, which is God's reality. And we all know I, we all are I, we all experience I, we are all equally experience God's light, because the sun shines equally or non-discriminately from the source, from its core. So it's important to not to deny the unhappiness, to recognize the unhappiness and to comprehend it, to have an understanding. Aha, that's what it's about. Whenever I confuse myself to be this body mind, of course there is a body mind, but the body mind appears to me like my car or my rose bush appears to me. I take care of my rose bush. I, you know, take care of it. I take care of my car. I take care of this body mind. You see, but I am not the rose bush. I am not the car. I am not the body mind, you see. And yes, the car is specific, the car, whatever, Toyota. Somebody else's car is a Honda or Ford, whatever. It's very specific. But it doesn't matter that every rose bush is different. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I is the same. I is one reality. It's one I.
it seems so simple, but something we bought that's it's almost like we're caught up in so many other things, and that simple truth is just
Yes.
overlooked. That simple truth is it's the condition for everything else to arise.
Yes. You know, Richard, like when you walk in the forest on the same track, at some point there becomes a trail, you know, and so it's like the mind that's constantly doing the me, not you, me, her, why me, why this one, and you know, that becomes a trail, you know, in the body, mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's important to understand that, and of course, then you don't need to walk that trail. You know, rather you enjoy the entire realm or everything. You don't need just stay in that trail. You see, it's just a metaphor, of course. I mean, so, but it's okay because it's in every moment. Every moment is a fresh moment. So in this moment, I may get into, oh, why did he do this to me? You know. And then I realize, wait a minute. At that moment, you know, I am assuming, you know, me as a person and him and her or her as a person. You know, so I say, wait a minute. I don't want to walk. I will cease and desist. You know, and just experience, just being, experience being, experiencing being. It includes the sensations. You know, there may be, for example, some echo of feeling wronged. You know, I am not going to maintain the story, but even though I don't maintain the story, there may still be within the body mind a certain vibration. Okay, that's okay. I can experience that because it will fade away, but I don't want to give it more fuel. You see, I don't want to give it more fuel. Oh yeah, I was so good to him, and I sent him when he needed help. I helped him, you know, and now he's doing that to me. What sort of, and so on. You know how it goes. So we say, wait a minute, no, 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 no.
In to your point, I recently have had some conflict at work, say normal stuff, but I do see it. I'll see sort of I want to get into the role, to the act, of the conflict, rather than simply just responding to the situation.
Yes.
There's a tendency to want to get into and become engaged, and I noticed that, and it's much better when I don't do that.
Yeah, yeah. You
But
know,
being aware of it happening is very helpful.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. You can look at these opportunities. You know that
Right.
these opportunities, because it really doesn't matter in the end. You know, you get the promotion, you don't get the promotion. In the grand scheme of things, who cares? But the opportunity to come to the freedom of your true nature. Now that's, so how can I explore this situation as presence, as responding, the proper response that takes in account the totality, not just, oh, I was wronged, but can I? So it's an exploration, but it's an exploration that has an interest not in why did I, why didn't it happen my way, but rather it has as its interest to come to a certain way of living that is in accordance with our understanding, our higher understanding.
Yes, it
Not
is.
just,
Yes, absolutely.
yes,
Not to win the conflict, but to respond to what is.
yes,
Yeah.
of course, it is a response. Sometimes we do ask, can I have a clarification about why this decision was made? Because my understanding was that all the indications were pointing towards in that direction. Can I have an, you know, and you don't know what the reply will be. The reply may be, no, we're not. And we don't know. So if the reply has an openness in it, so we pursue it. Sometimes it's not available to us to have a relationship where everybody who is involved in the relationship is taking the high path, let's say. We don't know. But even then, all is well. That's very important. All is well, even when we are not being responded to in a way that is fair. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes we are treated in a way which does not seem to be fair, not according to my personal views, but according to principles of fairness. And so we dance that dance somehow, you know, without there anything being at stake. It's very important to understand that in the grand scheme of things, because the grand scheme of things is God's scheme of things, there's nothing at stake. So the seed sprouts, you know, and the tree grows. But the branches, some go this way, some go that way, some go whichever way. Doesn't matter how it unfolds, how the branches of the tree unfold. It's all the manifestation of the invisible reality of being, which is invisible within the seed, within the acorn. It's invisible.
Thank you so much, Magdi.
Hello, Holger. Yes, you are. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Hello, Magdi.
Hello, Holger.
What helped me a lot was in some of the satsangs I joined, you said when there is an uncomfortableness, ask yourself who is invested in this. Mm-hmm. Something like this you shared, and this helped me a lot to when there is fear or something to look, and this is so beautiful because who is the one who is invested in this is just a separate self.
Yes, and also the fear itself is just a sensation within the body mind that is a sort of resistance. There isn't in fact a separate self. There's no separate self. But what we refer to as a separate self is this contraction that we experience that is connected with the belief that there is something at stake for somebody. There is somebody, and there's something at stake, and things should be in a different way for that somebody happiness, for that somebody's happiness, you see. But if somebody's happiness is dependent on a certain layout of experience, then what happens when the layout of experience changes? Then that somebody's happiness has to now become on shaky grounds, you see. So this sort of comprehension that this effort to resist and correct the world, body, mind on behalf of the happiness of this somebody is a futile. It has a short duration, if at all any duration. So it's exhausting. You see, it's exhausting. But the entire process of fear is that what we say fearful is that process that's occurring. You see. And so we keep taking a look at, okay, wait a minute. Okay, what is it that I am protecting, that I am investing in? I has to refer to the real I, which is consciousness. What is it that I am protecting, I'm defending? What am I holding on to? What am I protecting? I'm protecting me, my family, me, but there's me at the core. So I say, well, okay, well, what is this me in this moment? So in this moment, the me is just image or a memory or story or sensation or some bundle of images, thoughts, opinions, whatever. In fact, there isn't a me. You won't find it. You won't find it. You will only find thoughts, sensations. And so then we find that, oh, I am living day after day. I'm exaggerating, maybe not day after day, but on occasion, vested in that shifting bundle of images and thoughts, and I'm constantly worrying, not constantly, but on occasion worrying and have a concern, you say, concern, and so I cannot relax. It's difficult to have a concern and to relax, you see. And when you are not relaxed inwardly, the activities of outwardly are also not, they are affected, because you could be active outwardly and still be relaxed inwardly. Then it's okay. But when you're active outwardly and inwardly you are concerned, the activity of your outward activities are affected by your inward say conflict or whatever, your inner unhappiness.
Atmosphere.
I'm sorry.
I like the word atmosphere.
Atmosphere, yes. If the atmosphere inside is not a happy atmosphere, because in fact, I'm saying inside outside, they're not like, there isn't like a line, this is inside, that's outside. It's all happening together, you see, in a way. So, the peace of being, the peaceful atmosphere, and it has no limit to its reach, you see. The reach of the peaceful inner atmosphere has no limits, see. And that's very beautiful.
I'm very familiar with this contraction, this me contraction inside. And for me, it was always like a feeling of survival. It wasn't about happiness, but it was just to survive. I mean, this was so weird.
Yes.
But on a way, and this went on for decades. I mean, this is amazing.
Yes.
And then always this hunger to find relief. And I found short-term relief in some stuff, in buying some stuff, or in entertaining myself with videos, or walking, or overeating. But this is so amazing how simple the whole thing is. And I'm still learning.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then with this atmosphere, in the Bible, it says, as in heaven, so on earth.
Yes, beautiful. Yes, as in heaven, so on earth. Yes, heaven is consciousness. When we come to the understanding of our true nature, is heaven, heaven, and so on earth. They're not separate, you see. As in heaven, so on earth, they're one. The world
And
body.
so, and some days ago, there was such a strong feeling of presence. And the first time I had the feeling, I don't know how to say it, but there is another. I mean, I felt a duality in myself as one. It doesn't make any sense, and I don't need to discuss this or something, but it was just a very interesting sensation or something. Like, I could understand why in the Bible they speak about the Jesus and the God as it's just the presence inside of yourself.
Yes.
And
Yes. 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 And this presence, the reality of being, the reality of presence. Presence is everywhere and nowhere, is everything and nothing. This is, so we say presence is inside of ourselves. Yes, absolutely. But ourself is the entire universe. And just in terms of a survival, there is a thing is saying, I always misquote it, and John corrects me, or somebody corrects me in the Bhagavad Gita, I think, or that which is never ceases to be, that which is not has never come into being, something of that sort, that survival, that which is, never cease to be. There's no issue or question of survival when it comes to reality. And that which isn't, that which the illusion, that which seems to be, has never been. So, survival of an illusion, we rather realize the illusion, to realize, oh, that's an illusion. There's nothing wrong with an illusion, except for believing it to be not an illusion, to be believing it to be reality. See? So that which is impermanent, that which is constantly changing, is not reality, because it's constantly changing. So that's the illusion meaning the impression, reality taking on this impression, taking on the form of windstorm, taking on the form of sunshine on the ocean, the surface of a lake, etc. Taking on the form of this perception. Oh yes, Richard. Yes, Parmenides. We can speak and think only of what exists. And what exists is uncreated and imperishable, for it is whole and unchanging and complete. It was not or nor shall be different, since it is now all at once one and continuous. Parmenides. Yes, thank you, Richard. I just want to make a note, since you posted that, Richard, that in my language, I make a distinction, grammatical distinction. When I use the word existence, I do not refer to existence in the same way that Parmenides, just in terms of the wording. I use the word reality to refer to that which never comes and goes, and existence as in reference to that which arises and subsides and subsides.
Yes, and I'm not an expert. I think he does too. Although he's smart to know. He says to think and to be are the same. thing, but it's hard to know what he meant. But thank you.
Yeah, I was not just commenting about Parmenides. I was just wanted to clarify, make a note about the word existence, how I use it, so not because he's using it here to referring to reality. You know? At least that's how I'm understanding.
I think you're right, Magdi. I think so.
Yeah.
Thank
you for the sharing. There are so many beautiful ways of saying that, and Parmenides.
What you and Holger were saying about the Bhagavad Gita made me called that to mind from Parmenides.
Yes, thank you.
What about as a teaching tool to have a glossary to look at the words, the important words, and define them very precisely?
Yes, at least the way we use. Yes, I think it would be helpful, at least the way we use them here, because I know that, for example, the word consciousness on various occasions, not recently, there have been some different usage of that word. It's possible that also there are some variations in understanding and usage of the word awareness and consciousness, which I use these words synonymously. So yes, but at least here among us, because the friends who come here to these meetings have been coming for quite a while, we have an understanding of the language that we use, but the glossary would be helpful.
For a long time, I referred to my inner atmosphere as mental confetti.
As what? Mental confetti.
because I was using the words so mixed up. Everything was just mixed up and not precise, and so no wonder that there was confusion. I mean,
yes. I like the word atmosphere. You know, I haven't used that, you know, word that I like using it, but you know, when you plant a seed, and it's the seed of a thorn, everything that will grow from that seed will be a thorn, will be thorny. So at the root of the confetti is the misunderstanding about consciousness. And we all know that firsthand, we've all experienced that mental confetti. The clarity is, of course, God's clarity is the clarity of consciousness that shines onto the mind, and it restores the confetti. It restores the confetti to order. The order comes from the peace of being. The mind, the clarity of the mind and the peace are interconnected. The peace of being and the wisdom is of course, you know, God's wisdom. It's how consciousness thinks. Consciousness thinks as wisdom.
I equate God with consciousness, and Jesus, the moving principle, with awareness.
Okay. What do you mean by the moving principle?
I mean, Rupert Spira speaks about this. He says consciousness is awareness at rest, and awareness is consciousness in movement. They're both the same. One is just the unborn, and one is the creation. And this I just call this moving principle. But I don't want to go to become too complicated. I mean,
yeah, no, I understand. And I don't want to make a comment about, you know, what Rupert has.
Maybe I get it wrong. It's always blame it on me. I always get it wrong.
No, it's not. No, I'm just trying to comprehend. You know, just trying to comprehend. I mean, comprehension is important. So yes, consciousness is God. Yes, that's a religious way of using the term consciousness. God is the moving principle. If there is a moving principle and is the principle at rest. So movement and rest are one within God. God is movement and rest. So it is in movement. In movement, God is one could say all realms, all realms of experiential realms. And I don't only refer to the human experiential realm, but all realms of, from the human perspective, which is the limited perspective of the human mind, body mind. So the moving principle, at least using those terms, that would be, in my comprehension, the movement, the activities of thinking, perceiving, sensing. So this, for example, this here right now would be the moving principle, which is, you know, quote unquote, someone could say God in motion. And God at rest is, I would say, two things. You know, one is God recognizing itself, meaning the presence, God's presence, which is God's truth, God's reality. But this presence, which is a rest, permeates the activity, permeates the movement. You know, so the moving principle within its every cell, let's say, using the word, within its every energetic movement, is that stillness. Is it stillness? So it's so the stillness is within the activity. The restfulness is within the activity. The activity is the restfulness, seemingly active. So in a way, it's a little bit like the what is it, the double slit experiment, where it's particle and a wave, sort of as a metaphor, you know. But you know, there are many ways of speaking, of course. And I feel that what's important to comprehend is that the activity of God's activity, God in motion, doesn't imply any separate realities, any external worlds or any external realities. That is, it's still God dancing to herself, within herself, as herself, and there isn't an external observer, or an external aspect to it. I would also like to say that all teaching, all the Dharma is metaphoric, because that which we are speaking about is unspeakable.
coming to satsang is like charging my batteries, so it feels.
Yes.
I mean, my crazy mental confetti just comes to rest in your presence, and I have this feeling I'm going really to the core, to the center of the universe, and from there, the energy just flows again, as myself into myself.
Yes. Any questions? Any questions? Hey, Holger.
I think I remember now Rupert saying it was mind and consciousness. So mind at rest and consciousness in motion. I think this was how he said it.
Yes, that's.
Yeah. And then with Jesus in the Bible saying, "I and my Father are one," and Jesus saying, "I of my own self can do nothing. It is the Father within me who does the work."
Yes.
And so this is for me awareness and consciousness just playing, I mean, just a dualistic way of trying to understand the unnameable or something.
Yeah, the Father within me, let's say I am doing nothing. There's a Father within me that is the doer. So that's an important understanding that all so-called activities, what the mind, what we refer to as the mind, thoughts, perceptions, sensations, are not personal. They are universal. They're God's thoughts, God's perceptions, God's creation. So God conceives, creates, perceives, moment by moment, and destroys as she wishes, out of her complete total freedom. And that at the local level, this local mind is God's mind. It's God's instrument. And that recognition, the deepening of this recognition, of this understanding, reveals to you your true nature as you are God's, you are in God's castle. You've never left God's castle. So the personal mind, the impression of a personal mind, is recognized to be impersonal, albeit limited. Yes, this particular mind, meaning that which appears is limited, but the owner of this mind is a multi-billionaire.
Trillionaire.
Trillionaire.
Gazillion.
Gazillionaire. So who cares in what bank he's banking, because he owns all the friggin' banks and all the accounts. And there is a confusion which I think it subsides with our understanding of our true nature. The confusion is that I am this mind. I is not this mind. I is God's mind. And there is no problem whatsoever with that this local precipitation of God's mind differs from the local precipitation of God's mind via the Holger painting. There's no issue with that. What's the issue? There's no issue. It's like the sun shines equally onto the oak tree or the rose bush or the surface of a lake. What's the difference then? The rose bush is the rose bush, and the lake is the lake, and the oak tree is the oak tree. They are how God chooses to dance, which we refer to as the illusion, or mind, or the dance of Shiva, how God chooses to play.
And the mountain and the lake and the ocean, they're all made out of the same material.
Yes.
It's just, yeah.
Yes, it's like a good metaphor is in your night dream. Your night dream, if you dream of a butterfly and a herd of pink flying elephants and of children playing in the park, all of which are made out of the same you. They are you, the dreamer. But their reality, they do not have any reality of their own, or one could say their reality is you, is the reality of consciousness. So they seem to be real of their own. They seem to have a reality of their own. They seem to have an activity, a particular activity that is particular to their dance. But that's the illusion, because in fact, they have no reality of their own. There isn't an actual activity to the butterfly or to the pink flying elephants. It's this illusion, and it is the reality of this illusion is that there is a consciousness, is consciousness. And consciousness, you could say that consciousness in movement is existence, and at rest it is the bliss of being, the peace of being, which has nothing to do with ignorance. Ignorance is a different conversation altogether. One could say it is ignorant, it is consciousness overlooking itself, forgetting itself. But not really.
But isn't it needed to forget itself in order to become again aware of it? I mean, without contrast, you are not aware of who you are. You need to move in order to feel yourself.
Well, you can move and feel yourself, meaning experience this without experiencing ignorance.
Mhm.
So yes, I mean, we say sage is sage. Let's say moves and feels himself or herself, but there is no ignorance. Doesn't. So it's not necessary for activity. Doesn't necessarily imply or signify ignorance. Ignorance is a particular conversation. Ignorance is actually activity, but with a personal doer, with the impression that there is a personal doer, chooser, subject. So consciousness forgetting itself and therefore having identification, meaning being ignorance, is that would be the unhappiness. But not really. I'm saying not really because consciousness doesn't know unhappiness. So in order to dream unhappiness, although it doesn't experience it, it dreams it via ignorance, via sense of separation, but it doesn't experience it. So it's like a dream, it's like in a dream, you are in bed and you're dreaming that you're being chased by a lion, and you're very unhappy because the lion is fast. And you as a child are scared, are unhappy. But you as a dreamer, you are not unhappy. Now, I'm using it as a metaphor, because in fact, the reality of outside of the metaphor, when we are dreaming that we are being chased by a lion, also at the body level, at the dreamer level, there is something is happening, because there is ignorance. There is ignorance that, and I stepped out of the metaphor now, okay? I'm speaking in our experience. There is the ignorance that is residing within the body of the dreamer at the cellular level. It's residing there. And so there is an echo of the me that is sort of being sympathetic to the little child that is running for his life from the lion. But again, when we use a metaphor, we are it's a different, we use a metaphor to sort of invite a different understanding. Sort of, we're fudging a little bit. Fudge factor. They do that in science. They have a fudge factor. I think I remember years ago there was a fudge factor.
Maybe for another time, but the difference between science and religion is an interesting one, because to me, science is also just trial and error. I mean, there's so much hope and faith also in science that I don't know where the difference is besides the appearance.
Yeah, we can talk about that next time. I mean, science has more purity to it. It's not so much faith. Maybe there is an assumption for example, the assumption that there is matter, and that we're looking for some of the qualities of matter or manifestations of matter, or so there is an assumption, but in the process of in the scientific process, there is a certain purity of experimentation and double verification of the results by various other minds, which is, I think, is different from religion. Religion is more about belief, and so it's more of a dogma, and you're a believer or non-believer. Mm-hmm. You belong to this religion or to that religion, or no religion. So between religion and science, I definitely go for science. And actually, in our inquiry, we use reasoning, higher reasoning, which has a scientific aspect to it, in that we base ourselves on observation, on our direct experience. And scientist, in a way, also bases himself or herself on observation of the results of data of experiments. So there is more of a parallel, except in science, there isn't the initial assumption of materialism. The initial materialistic assumption is not examined. But the more they're hitting the brick wall, they keep hitting the brick wall, they're starting to now, and plus the models, the scientific models, mathematical models are somewhat more advanced, is starting to bring into question their assumption of a physical reality. So there are questions now within the scientific fields about, are we talking about a materialist model? Or are we talking about an idealist model? Or what model are we talking about? At least in some circles, in some scientific circles, there is this question.
So, but when I read the Bible, when I read the Jesus story and the Christmas story, and I bring in all those ideas of non-duality, and they totally match what is written in the Bible, then is this religion, or is this like a religious science?
No, that's not a religion. I mean, yes, you could say there is a religious language, but religion, at least, there is a difference between religion and spirituality. All religions have their root in the awakened mind. They have their root in awakening. But the cloak, the dressing, makes a religion. So when you are contemplating truth and you go to the religious scriptures, whether it's in various religion, you will find, but you have to sort of peel, you have to peel if you go to the direct teachings of the sages in the religions, Christian or otherwise, you will find a resonance. Although there are changes over time in how we're expressing the teaching. Some of the teaching of 2,000 years ago were applied to that culture, and whether it was in Palestine or whether it was in India or wherever it was, there is a cultural element and cultural environment that affects the way the expression. But you will recognize, in spite of the cultural lingo, you will recognize the truth being spoken.
Because the human being is the same. I mean, the human being is the same like now and 2,000 years ago.
No.
It's only the conditioning is different.
No, because truth is the same. Consciousness is the same, not the human being. The human being is that which changes the culture. That's what we refer to as a human being. Is how people were 2,000 years ago and how we are now. It's changed. It changes, but the truth is the same. You know, and because truth is the same, you will recognize, when you are a truth lover, you will recognize the truth across these various traditions, especially when you're more, you have that deeper discernment. You won't get you won't get to the affected so much by the cultural way things were taught. Oh. Okay. Thank you, Tara. Thank you all. Forgot the time. Holger, thank you, and Amna, Richard, and Shiva.
Can you open, please?
And Carol, and John, and Kelly. Lovely to see you all. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stay well.